Good morning. Good morning. I want to keep us on time because we've only got a couple of hours. So we can keep us on task. I appreciate it. I want to thank everybody for taking the time to be here this morning. I think you will find it well worth the while for our community. And I want to thank initially the County Commission for providing this location and agreeing to this joint meeting of the governing bodies. I think it's important for us to show the public that we're talking to each other and we're not doing things without being open and inclusive on what we're trying to accomplish. This innovative effort, I think, has been really an exercise in different thinking, and that's what we have to do. We think about government, and we need to think about government as a government of possibilities, and that's what both of us are trying to accomplish with the commission and the council. And it's important for us to listen, take into account those ideas that are being offered, keep an open mind. And this will be, I think, a very good discussion. Just visiting a little bit with Brianna, she was telling me how excited she was about things that have been happening, especially the community engagement piece that has occurred. And I think that's important for us to remember that this room has certain responsibilities as elected officials and staff. But the community has to be heard all along the way to help us make those decisions and help us decide which directions are best for our community. So again, thank you very much for being here. Thank you for braving this is springtime now, right? It's something less than zero, so it's better than that, so we're in a good day. I do want to, because I think the public needs to know who's here, who's participating, take a roll call of our elected officials. So if I can ask Brenda to take a roll call for us, and then we'll get started.
Good morning. All right, we have Mayor Padilla.
Here.
Council members Hiller. Here. Valdivia Acala. Here. Ortiz.
Over here.
Banks.
Here.
Kell. Miller.
Here.
Dobler.
Here.
Duncan.
Here.
Hofer.
Back here with Sylvia.
Commissioners Rippon.
Here.
Cook.
Yes.
And Mays.
Here.
We have 12 present.
Thank you, Brenda. So this gathering will be monitored and facilitated by Brianna Silver. She will kind of help us move through this day, give us the cues where we need to listen to and take so that we can then break into different groups. But she is giving that information, so she's that right there objective fount of information that we're going to listen to. And again, the team that she's worked with is bringing a lot for us to consider. So without further ado, Brianna Silver, good morning.
Well, first of all, I just want to say it's so lovely to be here with all of you. Thank you for making the time to be here and coming out when it's so cold, although, as Mayor said, maybe feels like a little bit of springtime this morning comparatively. I want to just take a little bit of time this morning just to kind of bring you into the effort that has been going on. I know you've had some visibility, but just to make sure that everybody has the same visibility of what has happened before we really step into what we're going to be asking for your support with this morning. So this has been a project that's been going on since September of 2023. And what we've been tasked with doing in terms of the homeless initiative is that there's been both a core team established and an auxiliary team. And there's roughly about 11 people on the core team and about 13 on the auxiliary team. Since September of 2023, there's been a significant amount of effort that has been placed by these two teams in understanding the problem. So we are taking a methodology, it's called the Path to Innovation methodology, to really understand to really address this homelessness issue that is happening within your community, and it's in 3 distinct phases. So the first is what we call understand, and the goal there is to really fall in love with the problem and really try to understand what are some of the root causes that have gotten us to where we are, and therefore what are the solution pathways that might offer promise going forward. Then what we are transitioning into, which is where we are today and what you will be participating in, is the generate area. And this is all around generating solutions to address the problem. And then as we get closer to April, we'll transition into what is the deliver phase, which is starting to put down what are those action plans. And at that point, the community will need to make a decision about what will they support versus not going forward. So since September of 2023, we've really been in that understand phase. And many of the people who are sitting at the table with you today have been actively engaged in really supporting experts in the community, engaging in 1 to 2 hour conversations, so very in-depth conversations with folks to really try to understand from their perspective, why are we where we are? And what is their thoughts for how we might be able to change and get to a better place? Now, these distinct groups that have been connected with, it's been people who are experiencing homelessness themselves, or people who are on the verge of that, or maybe people who have come on the other side of that. Agencies who are supporting homeless in crisis across the community, and then public health and safety individuals. In addition to that, there's also been extensive literature reviews done around the topic of homelessness, and specifically, what has happened in other communities, what has worked, what hasn't worked, trying to make decisions of what is Topeka's environment and context related to somebody else's, and what might they be able to draw from that. And I want to stress the amount of time, the sheer time that has been placed by the individuals who are in this room. I counted it up yesterday, and with yesterday, this far exceeds this now, but over 1,000 hours amongst these people who have really been engaging in the community with thought and care going forward. Now, what has emerged from all of that discovery work is 7 insight statements that really start to dimensionalize why are we where we are, and more specifically, what are the potential solution pathways for emerging in a better place. And so we are going to share with each of you this morning 3 of those insight statements and ask for your support in generating solutions against that. Now, we are going through 4 ideation sessions this week, with very similar structure of what you will experience this morning, with very similar structure to what you're going to experience this morning, but we're putting different insight statements so that we have the ability to go deep on them versus sort of shallow and broad. Now, I wanted just to direct everybody's attention. We're not going to review this right now, but I think it's important to highlight. What is off to the right, you see all of those posters in the voting dots. These represent the best of the best ideas that were generated in 2 ideation sessions yesterday. The first was done by the core and auxiliary teams for the Homeless Initiative. And then the second ideation session was run with community members last evening. There was roughly about 40 to 50 people who showed up. And it was just such an amazing and rich engagement. The collaborative spirit in that room was palpable, and I'm super proud of what came out of that. So I really encourage you, as you leave the room today, to peruse what's up there. I know I will inevitably get the question, what's the difference between the green and red? So let me just put that out there right now. The green dots are those that people really felt were the most exciting and really had great promise for impact. And then the red are the wildest ideas that are up on that board. And so we want to encourage wild ideas as well. So like I said, we're going to review 3 of the insight statements that we have for all of you. We're going to ask for your support in ideating solutions so that coming out of this session, we will ultimately have a board of solutions of the best that we will add into this mix. Now, up here, you'll see that there is the problem focus statement. So after we did all of this discovery research, we then said, all right, let's reframe what we're trying to really do here in a community and get aligned on what that is. So what we're trying to do as the Homeless Initiative is the focus of our project is to decrease homelessness by promoting a safe and unified community that addresses the complexities of homelessness through community education and using data-driven approaches that increase the accessibility of housing and transformational services. So that is our charge. That's what we're working towards. We're going to review the insight statements in a second that we're going to ask you to support us in ideating around today. But before I do that, I just want to set some ground rules for what ideation actually is. So this is not a conversation per se, but it is getting ideas out on the table. Literally, that's why we've got paper. So they're going to go on the table. They're going to be written on the table. And so what I want you to realize is that this morning, it's about really getting as many ideas generated as possible at our tables and not really getting into the details of the mechanics of how it would happen or why it couldn't happen or anything of that nature, but just really generating as many ideas as possible. I also want you in that process to defer judgment, to build on the ideas of others, practicing yes and thinking, and then lastly, to encourage wild ideas and think big. And so I'm going to tell you a little story to try to put demonstration to those last 3 points. So there was a city in Canada who was in a similar session as all of you, and what their problem is that their power lines were snapping because of the dense snow on top of them. And so, they got a group of people together and they said, okay, we got to figure out how might we approach this differently. And so one had the safety to say, oh, all we need to do is have bears climb to the top of the telephone poles. That'll work, right? And now, normally somebody could be like, okay, yeah, bears, nice, yeah. And they could dismiss them. But because they deferred judgment, and they built on and used the practice of yes and, somebody else at that table said, all right, I'll see your bears. How are you going to get up to the top of the telephone pole? And then somebody says, well, we can put honey on top of the telephone poles. And then somebody else says, all right, how are you going to get the honey to the top of the telephone poles? And then somebody else says, oh, we could use the helicopter to put the honey on top of the telephone poles, and then the bears will climb the telephone poles. But it's when somebody said the helicopter that the whole thing kind of fell into place. Because then somebody said, we don't need bears and we don't need honey, but we do need the helicopter because we can fly the helicopter close enough to the power lines, and then the air from the helicopter is going to, make the snow fall down, and we aren't going to have any problem. Well, that was like instantaneous. They already had the helicopter in the city. They could do it. They could start it tomorrow, right? That day even. And so they did it, and now they don't have the same problems with the telephone and the power lines as they did before. But they never would have gotten there if somebody had dismissed the bear climbing to the top of the telephone pole. And so I share that to say, just go with it. Use yes and thinking, and just kind of keep seeing it and ask a different question, okay? All right, so with that, I want to now switch to starting to share a couple of the insight statements. So I'm going to ask members of our core team to come forward and just share, three of the insight statements, and then more specifically the how might we statement that we are going to be ideating against. And so the first person who's going to speak is Amanda. So I will bring it to you.
That's even easier. Okay, so the insight statement that we are going to talk about seems particularly relevant to you political officials. Homelessness has become a political flashpoint, and several entities are striving to come up with solutions. With several different entities, federal government, state, cities, counties, agencies, attempting to create a solution, it sends conflicting messages to the people experiencing homelessness. When solutions contradict each other, that leads to ineffective solutions and increases the frustration and fear among the community because they don't know what the outcomes of these policies might mean to their future. And so just briefly, how we got here is, if you think about it, everybody has different solutions right now. The federal government's doing their thing, the state's doing something totally different, cities and counties are doing something totally different. And so when you have all of those different contradictory messages, it does lead to confusion for the community because everybody is just the government. It's not different layers to the public, it's just the government. So the ideation question today is, how might we create an environment that's supportive to listening and working together to find solutions?
Thank you. Now we've got Lamanda, who's going to speak to the second one.
The next one starts out saying that there is a need for more effective coordination and collaboration of agencies supporting people experiencing homelessness. There are many agencies in Shawnee County designed to support people experiencing homelessness. More effective coordination and collaboration between agencies would include a centralization of education and resources, creating more impact. So based off of that, our ideation question is, how might we empower and strengthen the continuum of care to ensure coordinated communication and action? So there is, I think, a lot of uncertainty and sometimes just lack of knowledge of even that we have a continuum of care. Especially yesterday, we were talking about it, and as soon as we mentioned it, people at my table said, can you explain that? And so I think that there needs to be a deep dive into us saying, do we understand as a community our continuum of care? Do we understand we have a homeless task force? The homeless task force is made up of incredible individuals and agencies that are all individually doing everything that they can do. But when you look at how are they working together, it's a monthly meeting that is on Zoom or in person. And so we're looking at how might we empower them so that we have more communication and more effectiveness as we work together with the continuum of care and the homeless task force.
Wonderful. And then the third one is going to be done by Irma.
So the ideation that we're doing is shortcomings and challenges of Topeka's housing continuum result in acceptance of circumstances. There is a variety of shortcomings and challenges within our housing continuum, ranging from lack of options to limitations of resources available to help individuals stabilize in housing. Those experiencing homelessness feel overwhelmed, frustrated, and defeated when the process to finding and or stabilizing housing is complicated and not immediate. Individuals tend to accept their circumstances, and as a community, there's a struggle to find a solution when there's not an immediate one. So as we spent months researching and analyzing data, it has become a theme that there's a lack of education about the resources that are available. There is a theme of a lack of affordable, decent housing. This could be due to the fact that they may have a criminal background and therefore feel the need to accept substandard housing. And many of the individuals that we have spoken to have also relayed that they're already in a crisis and therefore find the process even more difficult to complete. And with that, we created 2 ideation questions. How might we simplify the process to obtain housing and resources? And the second one is, how might we partner with or encourage landlords to participate and create more safe and affordable housing?
Thank you, everyone. So those are the 3 insight statements that we are going to be ideating around. Each table is going to have the opportunity to ideate around 2 of them over roughly about a 40 to 45 minute time frame. So I want to demonstrate what this might look like in action, just so that everyone can kind of get a sense of it before you're being asked to do it. Can I borrow one of these? All right, so I'm going to borrow the one that Irma just walked us through. And so we'll take the how might we simplify the process to obtain housing and resources, how might we statement, okay? So how might we simplify the process to obtain housing and resources? Now, at each table, there is a series of cards. You have a table facilitator, so don't worry. They've got you. They've done this multiple times now. But there's these different cards, and they're meant to be inspiration and to get us sort of thinking in a different direction than maybe what we've done in the past. And so I just randomly chose one. It's Khan Academy. For those people who are not familiar with what Khan Academy is, it provides free education online for anyone, anywhere, in various different subjects, and it's provided in numerous languages to make it more accessible to folks. Now, some of the key principles that really define Khan Academy and kind of have allowed it to be what it is that its foundation is equitable access, empowerment, and being self-driven. And so if we think about those principles of equitable access, empowerment, and supporting, self-driven education in that perspective, and then we think about how might we simplify the process to obtain housing and resources, what ideas kind of come to mind? I'm looking for anybody to just throw out some thoughts. Equitable access, empowerment, and self-driven. Ideation question, how might we simplify the process to obtain housing and resources? Wonderful, one-stop shop. Fantastic. Housing navigator to walk individuals through the process. Let's take 3 more. Standardized form for applying. Excellent. 2 more. Assistance with down payments to get apartments. Great. And 1 more. Understanding of their goals. Perfect. So you guys got the idea. We're going to go through this. You're going to go through multiple of these cards for each insight statement. And, you might get to one that you're like, I don't know, that doesn't seem to really apply. If you feel that way, you just stick it to the side and pick another one. But I do invite you to really go with it, because just as there was that moment of hesitation of like, I don't know, but then it kind of starts to unfold, just allow yourself at least a minute of thinking about it and responding to it before you just sort of like cast it aside and move on to the next one. Before we go into the ideation here, I just want to point to quantity of ideas. That's what we're looking for this morning, is getting to as many ideas as possible. We'll have lots of time over the next few months to really winnow those ideas for quality and to really hone them for quality. But this morning is about getting as many ideas literally on the table as we possibly can. So I will let the group know when it's time to move to the second ideation statement, and otherwise I'm going to be walking around and, adding my 2 cents into different tables as it makes sense. But otherwise, I will start the clock and give you 40 minutes to really get into table conversations. All right. So this is the time that we're going to have the opportunity to get a glimpse of what has been happening at each table. So how this is going to work, I don't know if it's getting some good, can you take this a second? How this is going to work is each table, we're going to start up here and just kind of work our way around the room. And each table is going to share out the ideas, the best ideas that they have at their table. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put them on these sheets of paper, which we'll put over here. And if somebody from the core team can, maybe Todd, could you help me when I fill these out to put them over there? Perfect. And so what I'm going to be asking you to do at the end of this exercise, Irma just went around and put a pink piece of paper in front of you. And this is the way that you're going to vote today, is you're just going to state of the ideas that are up here, and I'll number them, so you don't need to put the whole thing. You can just say 1, 3, 5, whatever number. Basically put which ones do you think are the best that have been generated across the entire group today, and then also which two do you think are the most wild ideas that are up here as well. So that'll be what we do as we start to close out. But let's start with the share out. So I'm going to have this table initially share. What are your best ideas that your team generated?
Do you want me to share the how might we statement?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, so our first how might we statement is how might we partner with or encourage landlords to participate and create more safe, affordable housing. And our top idea with that one was landlord incentives. So some of those specific ideas would be some sort of second chance tenant landlord program. Someone, maybe a navigator or case manager that the landlord could call if there's issues to help get it resolved. Possibly financial support or incentives to the landlords as well. Tied in with that, maybe some sort of co-signer program where individuals who maybe don't have a great history can get someone to co-sign with them and increase landlords' willingness to participate. And then possibly some sort of land bank. We spoke about if the city owns property, maybe signing up landlords to manage or just using a land bank in a different way.
Okay, great.
And another idea for how might we simplify the process to obtain housing and resources, a centralized shared database where people could remain connected after their first point of contact. And the first point of contact would be a navigator, such as like an Impact Avenues navigator, somebody that sticks with them throughout the entire process, or a general case manager, whichever you want to call it. And within that, to reach that database, another easy way to gain access is through one phone number. So they came up with, if we had one phone number for the entire community to use for anybody that comes across somebody that needs resources, they can call that number and a navigator can connect them to the database and get them the resources they need, a case manager, etc.
Wonderful.
And then the second ideation question is how might we empower and strengthen the continuum of care to ensure coordinated communication and action? The idea, we ran out of time. The first idea we came up with was maybe like a JADO model or what the CRC's initial purpose was, and it would be like a city-county board where all information would flow to and from, so that we don't have a bunch of different entities doing things that not everybody else is aware of, and we're not doubling resources, etc.
Okay, great. Thank
We
you.
had the same insight statement, so we can just give you our ideas if you don't mind.
Perfect.
So the first one was to make sure that we create and have an understanding of our goals and vision. Make sure everybody has the same expectations of where we're at, where we want to be. And then we want to identify the stressors that affect our service providers and come up with some ideas to alleviate those stressors.
Excellent.
And another one would be develop a position. We didn't really have a name for it. They would be to facilitate a relationship with the property owners, the homeless population, and understanding their needs of both parties.
Okay, so the landlords, people experiencing homelessness, and who?
Just landlords and homelessness.
Okay.
And maybe the service providers
Oh, got it.
to understand how they could coordinate together.
Okay.
And another idea is to simply build it.
Build what?
Build a complex. Build houses.
Okay.
and simply give it away to the respectable management with the understanding and support of wraparound services.
The wild, I appreciate it. Think big. Okay, so give them away to I lost the last bit, to management of.
With the cooperation of wraparound services.
Okay. Okay, excellent.
Last one we had was to create a multi-sector coalition team approach. Typically, in the issue that we're talking about, it's service providers that are predominantly the ones who are involved in this arena. Identify all the different sectors that homelessness impacts, bring them to the table, give them a opportunity to not only have a voice, but to be part of the solution.
Excellent.
All right. We had our two ideation questions was how might we empower and strengthen continuum care to ensure coordinated communication and action, and how might we create an environment that is supportive to listening and working together to find a solution. And much like that's already been mentioned, we came up with, the centralization of the one-stop shop. I've been out and about to many communities looking at this already, but we talked about a centralization of services that also includes data tracking, that for projections in the community to find out who we are serving and who is becoming the more vulnerable in the community, and maybe to look at that, to provide a service navigator with our outreach groups to be able to start specifically to build the trust, to provide clear direction on how to access services, and develop strong relationships. But we went back with a sector approach of finding out who all is impacted and providing the value of that, but also involving the homeless to be part of that sector community discussion. But I think we all agreed that the whole success of this is going to have to be a clear, agreed upon vision and goal amongst those of our policymakers, of the council, the mayor, and the county government or the commissioners, that creates a transparent, safe, and trusted environment so the homeless can be heard. But also we break down walls and barriers amongst our own entities or policymakers and continue to work together. So that's what we came upon. Anybody else? All right.
All right, wonderful. Thank you.
Our ideation questions were, how might we lessen the barriers that those experiencing homelessness face when accessing basic needs? And how might we empower and strengthen the continuum of care to ensure coordinated communication and action? What we have is create an action plan for the task force with accountability and transparency. Enhance map resources, more locations.
Hold on one second, Pedro. All right, so create an action plan for the task force with accountability.
And transparency.
All right, now I'm with you.
Enhance map resources, more locations and frequency.
In more locations, and did you say resources?
And frequency.
Oh, and frequency.
And what were you saying?
Okay.
Okay.
And then just put the mobile. All right, excellent.
And then find a non-judgmental navigator, person or group, someone that can view our city's resources as needs as a whole. Everybody's on the same page. Everybody's equal.
Mm-hmm.
We discuss here that we're all reading the same book, but we're in different chapters. We need to get on the same page.
Great.
A one-stop hub that information is shared.
Mm-hmm.
And lastly, get away from all or nothing environment. Start small.
Mm-hmm. Excellent, thank you. All right, next team.
Okay, so our first one was how might we create an environment that's supportive to listening and working together? And so of our ideas we picked, the one that goes to that is, it starts with a premise that all layers of government and our constituents need to know what each other does, and there's a lack of knowledge of that. How many people come to city council meetings and county commission meetings? So our bold idea was a marketing campaign on what is government, what is the city, how is it different than the county, what do people do, and then to tag onto that, what are we already doing for homelessness and addressing it and the problems, and how do we reach all of the people that don't know what goes on every single day. So marketing campaign with innovative ideas on how to get people places.
Great.
And then our other three go to the how might we simplify the process of obtaining housing and resources and partner with landlords to participate and create more safe and affordable housing.
Okay, hold on 1 second, Amanda. When that rips off, I can't hear.
Oh.
Yeah, go for it.
It needs to rip faster.
All right, now you can go.
It's similar to what others said about a similar phone number, same phone number. Monique pointed out we have 311, but it's based out of Wichita, and so then they transferred to Topeka, and maybe we need to figure out how to better use that and educate people, get a Topeka base for 311 so that people know what it is and who to call.
Okay.
And then one-stop shop that could address with adequately staffed resources that has all of the information for both the people looking for housing as well as landlords. So maybe it could include an information clearinghouse that compare your landlords and renters to make it easier for that, as well as all of the information in one spot.
Okay.
And then our next one was a tiny house villages, zoning changes, developer incentives, whatever we need to do to increase tiny home villages or accessory use dwellings.
Okay.
And then we had a fourth one, I thought. Maybe we didn't. Maybe that's our numbers. Okay.
All good?
Yes.
All right, wonderful. Okay, and then the final group here.
Okay, so the first couple of our ideas was related to how we might partner with or encourage landlords to participate and create more safe, affordable housing. A couple of ideas that kind of mix together is looking at incentive programs and or some type of tax relief for developers. We had some discussion about whether it's current properties that are vacant or the building of new properties, is that what seems to get lost in the discussion sometimes for those individuals is then the increased tax burden that they have when the valuation of that property increases from the work they've done. So to look at something that helps provide some relief to that, that provides incentive for them to participate. Then the other idea we had was finding landlords who may also have employment opportunities for individuals who are in need of housing as well as employment, so that there's more of a connection there. It provides the landlord with some security in knowing that these individuals are going to have employment because they're working for them or maybe for an entity they're related to, as well as being a more stable environment when you get these individuals into that housing because they also have employment to continue to be able to provide for themselves. And then the other ideation statement was how might we create an environment that is supportive to listening and working together to find a solution as it relates to the different governmental entities. One thing we had was we talked about simplifying some of the information and the way it's disseminated, kind of the old KISS acronym about keeping it simple, bullet points type information rather than long drawn out reports that people get lost in. Also being more timely on the dissemination of information to elected officials. We had some discussion about how, you know, the team that's been working this has put in over 1,000 hours of work, and this is the first time that all of these elected officials are in the room to hear about this information and to hear about these ideas that we've been working on. So maybe being a little bit better about including them more on the front end. And then the other idea we had was more education on the resources that are available from the different entities to improve communication on commitment of resources. So
Can you back up 1 second? I missed, start it over again.
Okay. Education on the resources that are available from the different entities to help improve communication on the commitment of resources.
Okay. Excellent. Wonderful. Well, fantastic, everyone. I can take that. Thank you. All right. So we've got some good ideas up here. There's also some redundant ideas, as you've already seen and understood. What we're going to do is we're going to move these two over to this corner as well. And each of you have a pink piece of paper in front of you. You can go ahead and turn it over now. And so what we're looking for you to do is just to take stock of what came out across all the different teams. You can feel free to just get up and peruse that separately. But ultimately, we want you to put which numbers you would kind of put your vote on right now. Now, I want to just sort of temper, what does putting your vote on something mean? It does not mean that you are saying, oh, I'm willing to stand behind this and put money towards it and everything like that. That is not what this is saying. We are so far from that step yet. This is just about kind of saying, hey, of these ideas that came out of this particular session, these are the ones that intrigue me a little bit more than the other ones. That's what this means today. We will then be taking these ideas, the ideas that are back there, the ideas yet to come later tomorrow when we connect with the people who are experiencing homelessness, and then others that may have ended up here that never made it outward in a voice format. As a core team, we will start to process those ideas next week, and the intention is to ultimately get down to a draft portfolio of ideas. So one of the key deliverables of this work is to come up with a portfolio of solutions. Usually that ends up being 7 to 10-ish that cities say, we think if we were to execute these in concert, we could have a measurable impact in addressing our problem focus statement. So we will start that winnowing activity next week to get down to the 7 to 10 ideas that are in our draft portfolio of ideas. And I really want to stress the draft part of that, because I've been doing this work for over 20 years. Nobody ever stays with their draft portfolio of ideas, okay? It is a starting point. It is a kernel. Then we start to test and learn some of those, and inevitably it always changes. Some areas get refined, and so they become more focused than they are right now. So like let's just take, for instance, the one-stop shop. That's come up in every ideation group at this point. I imagine that will end up on a draft portfolio of ideas. However, the way in which I'm envisioning, first of all, we don't even know all the very different ways in which people are envisioning one-stop shop, first of all, in this room. But our first vision for what that might be that we go back out into the community with could be 100% spot on. It could be also 100% off course. And so we start to use that test and learn process to really get honed in on, okay, this idea of one-stop shop, how is that executed to be most meaningful and beneficial for the community and for the people that we're trying to serve? There's dozens of different ways that could be executed. And so our idea, we would need to use that test and learn process to figure out the best way to execute it, to maximize both the resources that we have in the community, as well as the number of people that we can serve through something like that. And every idea that gets put into that portfolio of ideas will get shaped through that testing, that test and learn process that we pursue. As a team, we will choose 2 of the 7 to 10 ideas to go through a fully robust test and learn process. But what I will also tell you is that even if a different idea is not the one that's necessarily chosen for that test and learn process, they always get further shaped because of what we're learning through the other ones. It's like a way to continue to go deeper. So I wanted to, share that to alleviate any concerns. We're not asking you to put a vote for where you want to put funding or anything else right now. We're just asking you to say, hey, of these 23 ideas that are over here, these are the 4 that I look at and I'm like, that could be kind of interesting. And then these are the 2 that I'm like, well, that is a wild idea. And so that's what I want you to put in the bottom half of that sheet. And then there's a little space there too. If there's anything else that you want to share with us, you can do that. So I'm going to give the council and the commissioners in the room like 10 minutes to go kind of look over there, make your marks here, and then we're going to do a couple closing remarks here before we close out. Okay, looks like there's a couple folks who are still wrapping up, but we'll let them do that while we advance forward to do the last thing that I want to do, which is just to reflect on the experience that we've had today. So this is, an opportunity to really come together, talk about this, get ideas on the table, really start, I would say, the process of thinking about how we might collaborate more intentionally to achieve our outcome that we have here. And so as we wrap up today, I always like to do a one-word, one-phrase takeaway. And so what I'm looking for, and it's okay to have double. I always get people who are like, Rhiannon stole mine. It's okay to be a +1. But I want you to just kind of reflect for yourself, what has this experience meant or felt to you, or what do you think it is a kernel for going forward? So what is one word or phrase to describe kind of what your takeaway is today? So I'll have this table start, and then we'll just kind of roam it around so that we have the microphone.
My word would be, I think, encouraged. This is a difficult issue, and it is so nice to see everyone in the room together working on it.
My word is appreciative. We need everybody, so thank you for taking your time.
I'd say hopeful. This is really a tough nut to crack, but hopefully we can make some progress.
What they said, but I guess the thought for me was regroup. That what we heard was new ideas, but also some systems that had worked before that maybe we could look back and say, how did that work?
Yeah.
Why did it work? As well as looking forward.
That's wonderful.
Productive.
Friendly.
Impressed. I'm impressed by everybody's engagement today. I'm impressed by the amount of people that showed up, and I'm impressed with the amount of participation that it took. So,
Great.
Community. Understanding.
I am grateful to be here, and I've learned a lot today.
Optimistic.
Motivated.
Excited.
Good start. That's 2 words, but Karen had more than 2 words.
I did say phrase.
Momentum. We're just keeping going and going.
Hope.
Conquer. Needed face-to-face time.
Unified. I think there was some division coming into it, and I think there's unity coming out of it.
Optimistic.
Introspective.
Empowered.
Energized.
Insightful.
Conceivable collaboration.
Well, I was going to say collaboration, so now, no, that's okay. Cheerful. It was a happy environment today.
Nice.
Encouraged.
Optimistic.
Inspiring.
Eye-opening. Excellent. Well, thank you all. My one-word takeaway from today is ready. So we've turned the pivot, right? We went from falling in love with the problem to now starting to get active in the solution making. And this is the part where it's the part that everybody gets anxious to have happen. And then when we're here, it gets super exciting because you start to see the possibility unfold right in front of you. So again, I want to say, thank you to each and every one of you for being here today. Thank you for the support to be doing this work. And we look forward to the continued engagement that we have with you all, as well as everyone in the community that we will be engaging further as we move forward. So thank you, and a big round of applause for everybody. All right, well, Mayor, is there anything that you need to do to officially adjourn the meeting?
Thank you. Just real quickly, again, let this not be our last meeting on this topic. Look forward to the next opportunities that we'll have together. So, no further business for today. The meeting's adjourned. And thank you again, Brianna. Another round of applause for her.
Right on cue for the train.